911, what's the address of the emergency?
I think my wife shot herself. There's blood all over.
Shot herself with a gun?
It looks like it.
Does she still have the weapon?
I don't know. We just got.
Did she shoot herself?
I don't know. I just saw her in blood.
Okay. Do you see her right now?
No, I'm with my son.
Sir, do you know if she was breathing at all?
I don't.
Okay.
We just had some dinner.
It was an ordinary afternoon in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, back in 2016, when two FBI agents showed up at the door of a house set back off the road. A woman named Amy Allwine answered, and what those agents had come to tell her was almost impossible to take in. Someone had been trying to have her killed. Not in the heat of the moment, not some argument that got out of hand. Someone had been planning it, paying for it, for months. And the strangest part of all, even the FBI couldn't tell her who. So here's what they'd found. On the dark web, that hidden side of the internet you can't just pull up on Google, where people buy and sell the kinds of things you'd never find out in the open, there was a website called Besa Mafia, and it offered one very specific service. For the right amount of Bitcoin, you could pay to have a person beaten, threatened, or even killed. You'd pick what you wanted done, and you'd pay. And someone using the name Dog Day God had been on that site for months, trying to arrange Amy's murder. But here's the thing that saved her, at least for a while. The whole site was a scam. Besa Mafia never sent a single hitman anywhere. It was set up to take money from people cruel enough to pay for a murder, knowing they could never go running to the police when it didn't happen. A cybercrime researcher named Chris Montero managed to get inside the site, saw the full list of orders, and realized it was all fake. When that information made its way to the FBI, they found Dog Day God's orders, and they found Amy's name. So they came to warn her. They told her whoever was behind it had gotten more and more frustrated with the site for failing to get the job done, even after thousands of dollars in Bitcoin had changed hands. And some of the requests were chilling. They wanted it to look like a car accident, or they wanted the house burned down with Amy still inside. And when the site asked Dog Day God why, what Amy had ever done to deserve this, the answer came back that she'd slept with their husband and that she'd been stealing clients from their business. They wanted her dead. But why Amy? What had she ever done to anyone? She couldn't make sense of it. She'd never had an affair. She'd never stolen from anyone. She'd spent years building her business the honest way. But someone out there hated her enough to pay for her death, and nobody could tell her who. After the agents left, Amy did what anyone would. She started staying home more. She put in security cameras. She added extra locks to the doors and the windows. And her husband, Stephen, went out and bought her a gun so she could protect herself. The fear took over her whole body. She started getting terrible migraines. She spent more and more time in bed, drained, sick with worry. And then, that summer, it got even worse. Then, in July, Amy started getting emails from a stranger, someone who signed them only as Jane. And whoever Jane was, she knew things. She knew where Amy parked her car on certain days. She knew what Amy's little boy had been wearing. She brought up that same affair the hitman site had mentioned, the affair that never happened. And she told Amy the best thing she could do now was to end her own life. And if she didn't, Jane warned that everything Amy loved would be taken from her, one piece at a time. And every single time, Amy would know she could have stopped it. The emails were personal. They named her family. They listed where people lived. They talked about her business, her son, her home. And there was no way to trace them, no address, nothing to follow back to a real person. Amy took them straight to the agents, terrified. But there was nothing to grab onto. Whoever Jane was, she'd covered her tracks completely. So Amy waited, and she was afraid, and she tried to carry on. Now, to really understand this story, you have to understand the life Amy Allwine had built. She'd been married for 20 years. She and her husband met young at a religious college in Texas, and after the wedding, they moved to Minnesota to be closer to her family. They settled in Cottage Grove, and they built the kind of life other people quietly envied. They were devoted to their church. Her husband was well liked there, a preacher and a lay minister, the man other couples came to when their own marriages were falling apart. He counseled them. He prayed with them. Amy served the congregation right alongside him, and the two of them even made videos together for the church, teaching people how to dance while keeping in step with their faith. Steady, faithful, kind. The couple everyone wanted to be, and Amy was a mum first. She and her husband had adopted a son, Joseph, who was 9 years old that year. She had a business she loved, training dogs, and she was good enough at it to travel and compete. Her husband worked from home as an IT specialist, so he was around most days. And through all of it, the fear, the emails, the sleepless nights, he was right there beside her, comforting her, telling her they'd get through this together. So who on earth would want her dead? That was the question nobody could answer. She had no enemies, no debts, no secret life. Just a quiet woman in a quiet town, loved by just about everyone who knew her. And somewhere out there was a person who wanted her gone, and who would keep trying until they got their way. November 13th, 2016. A cold, snowy Sunday, just 10 days before Thanksgiving. Amy was up early, roasting pumpkins to make pies. Stephen was downstairs in his basement office. Around noon, the three of them sat down for lunch together. But soon after they ate, Amy said she felt dizzy again and went to lie down. Early that afternoon, her dad came by. Stephen told him Amy was resting. An hour later, her dad left. But minutes after that, Stephen called and asked him to come back and take their son for a bit so he could bring Amy to the doctor. Her father agreed, picked up the boy, and the two of them headed off. Around 5, Stephen called again to say he was running late, that he had to stop for gas. When he finally pulled up, he told his father-in-law that Amy had changed her mind about the doctor after all. Then he took his son out to eat, and they got home just before 7. The little boy walked into his parents' bedroom first, and he found his mother on the floor in a pool of blood, a handgun lying beside her. Stephen called 911.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
I think my wife shot herself. There's blood all over.
Shot herself with a gun?
It looks like it.
Does she still have the weapon?
I don't know. We just got.
Did she shoot herself?
I don't know. I just saw her in blood.
Okay. Do you see her right now?
No, I'm with my son.
Sir, do you know if she was breathing at all?
I don't. I
Okay,
just got back from dinner.
Okay, would you like to check on her and see if she is, or do you believe that she's beyond help?
Stay there for just a second. They want me to go check on her. Hang on.
Okay.
She's not breathing. I can't tell where she's shot. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, bud.
Are we gonna remarry?
I don't know, bud.
Are there any other weapons in the residence, sir?
Yes, there's a shotgun in the room.
Okay, is the shotgun the one she has?
No, she had a handgun.
Is it just you and your son home right now?
Yes.
Okay. Steven, are you able to just step out of the home with your son so my officers can see you when they pull up?
Yeah.
Minutes later, Cottage Grove police were on their way. One of the first officers there was Gwen Martin. She recognized the address before she even arrived. Just weeks earlier, she'd spent 8 weeks teaching a community class on law enforcement, and one of the people in that class, eager, kind, had been Amy Allwine. 18 years on the job, she'd seen terrible things. But when she walked in and saw Amy, she broke down and cried, because deep down, she already knew. There was no way Amy had done this to herself. The house still smelled of the pumpkins in the oven. Amy was lying on her back on the bedroom floor, a wound on the right side of her head, a gun, near her left elbow. And almost straight away, the whole thing started to fall apart. The gun was by her left arm, but Amy was right-handed. The bullet had gone in on the right side of her head at a steep downward angle that would have been nearly impossible to reach on her own, and her hands were clean. No blood, no gunshot residue, none of what should have been there if she'd pulled that trigger herself. Then came the toxicology report. Amy's blood was full of a drug called scopolamine, around 40 times the amount a doctor would ever prescribe. It's normally used for nausea, but in heavy doses, it leaves a person confused, helpless, even unconscious. Amy had never been prescribed it, and the medical examiner put her death at around 3:15 that afternoon, which was a big problem because Stephen had told people he'd spoken to Amy at 5 o'clock, alive, praying in the bedroom. That simply could not be true. 2 days later, Stephen sat down with police for a long interview. He was quiet, teary, kept his head down most of the time. He said he had no idea why his wife would take her own life. He never saw it coming, he said, and somehow it felt like it was his fault. He said he didn't know who could have sent those emails, and he swore Amy had never cheated on him. Then he offered up something all on his own. He admitted that he'd had an affair once, a woman named Michelle, a couple of years back, something Amy never knew about. He wanted to come clean, he said, just in case it ever looked bad. And the more he talked, the more his story started to crack. He couldn't keep the details straight. He couldn't even remember how many times he'd come and gone from the house that day. Meanwhile, back at the home, investigators noticed something strange. Most of the floors were covered in dog hair, the way you'd expect in a house full of dogs. But one stretch of hallway was spotless, clean, like it had just been scrubbed. So they sprayed it with luminol, which lights up traces of blood you can't see with the naked eye. And that clean hallway lit right up. There'd been a lot of blood there, and bloody footprints too, from a shoe that was a size 12. The medical examiner wouldn't call it a suicide. Neither would the police. Everything was pointing in one direction. So they took Stephen's computers. Down in his basement office, they found a serious, high-end setup. This was a man who knew exactly what he was doing with technology. He'd admitted to one affair. On his devices, they found at least 3 relationships he'd started on Ashley Madison, a website made for married people looking to cheat. A site he'd apparently stumbled onto while counseling couples at his church. The man who prayed with struggling marriages was quietly living the exact opposite of everything he preached. They found he'd spent thousands of dollars in Bitcoin on the dark web. And then they found the username, Dog Day God. The very same name the FBI had warned them about 6 months earlier. The person who'd tried to have Amy killed wasn't a stranger at all. Back on that same site, as Dog Day God, he'd told Besa Mafia exactly where to find her. She'd be traveling to a dog training competition in Illinois, he said. And if it couldn't be done there, she'd be in Atlanta a few weeks later. He'd even sent them a photo of her, taken on a family vacation in Hawaii, and investigators found that the very same picture had been pulled off the Allwine's own computer just seconds before it went to the site. They found that he'd gone shopping on the dark web for scopolamine, the exact drug found in Amy's blood. And then they found Jane. Stephen had installed the software you need to send anonymous, untraceable emails. And here's the detail that closed the door completely. A day before Jane sent that first email listing Amy's family and where they lived, Stephen had searched for those very same addresses himself. He wasn't being hunted by Jane. He was Jane. He was Dog Day God. He was the man behind all of it. But the one piece of evidence that sealed it all came down to Bitcoin. Now, cryptocurrency doesn't work like a regular bank. Every transaction gets written into a public record called the blockchain, a permanent ledger that anyone can see and that can never be erased or changed. To spend it, you need a wallet. And every wallet has its own unique address, its own long code that belongs to it and it alone. On the 22nd of March, Stephen copied his wallet address into the Notes app on his phone. Less than 30 seconds later, Dog Day God sent that exact same address over to Besa Mafia. And then, Stephen deleted the note. Not long after, he went to the police with a story of his own, that he'd been scammed, that he'd lost almost $6,000 trying to buy Bitcoin. A victim, he wanted them to think, not a suspect. But the blockchain had already remembered it. He could delete the note on his phone. What he could not delete was the record he'd written into the world. And that was the smoking gun. There was no coincidence on Earth that could explain it. All told, he sent nearly $13,000 in Bitcoin week after week. The plan, in the end, was for Amy to be killed at the house and the place set on fire. But of course, no hitman ever showed up. Because there was no hitman. When the site kept making excuses, Stephen got frustrated and moved on to another dark web market to buy the drug himself. Police believe he meant to leave Amy helpless and then finish it with his own hands. And underneath all of it, there was a motive. As a minister, a divorce would have cost Stephen everything, his standing, his role in the church. But Amy had a life insurance policy worth $700,000, and Stephen was the only one who'd collect it. They believe he drugged her, shot her in the hallway where all that blood had been, then moved her body into the bedroom to stage the scene. He spent the hours his son was gone cleaning it all up. Then he picked the boy up, brought him home, and let a 9-year-old be the one to find his mother. In January of 2017, 2 months after Amy died, Stephen Allwine was arrested.
It's not often that law enforcement learns about a murder before it actually happens.
That is the case, though, with the Cottage Grove woman whose husband was back in court today charged with her murder. Tom Lydon of the Fox 9 Investigators is in the newsroom for us tonight as detectives take Tom inside this case. Tom?
And guys, it was pretty unusual. The FBI knew someone was trying to hire a hitman on the internet to kill Amy Allwine 6 months before her murder. Police say that someone turned out to be her husband, who works in IT and was very computer savvy. The case was complicated, to be sure, even if, in hindsight, the suspect was obvious.
Leaving the courthouse today, Stephen Allwine's demeanor revealed nothing.
A whole different aspect to his personality that people didn't seem to know.
This was something that he had been planning on for quite a long time.
I think that's what all the evidence suggests at this point. Yeah, it was a process over quite a bit of time.
Jennifer Waters was one of her students.
Amy was the most motivating person. She was the most positive person. She had nothing but good things to say about anybody.
I think it's pretty clear now that the FBI did a lot of investigation that they didn't tell us about.
The FBI had told the couple and Cottage Grove detectives it had received information that a murder-for-hire inquiry had been located on the dark web, with Amy Allwine as the intended target. Go to the dark website today and you get a song from The Sound of Music and this message: Besa Mafia has closed for business.
You haven't learned anything from the FBI or elsewhere where you said, gosh, if we had known that sometime after May, we could have connected the dots.
I go back to the husband just because it's usually the husband, but that's really the only reason you would look at him.
The FBI would not be interviewed for this story and will not say whether it ever considered Stephen Allwine a suspect in the murder-for-hire case. Leaving court today, Stephen Allwine's attorney would not speculate on what the FBI knew or when they knew it.
Do you believe it's odd that the FBI knew about the threats on the dark net 5 months before Amy Allwine's homicide?
I haven't seen any of their notes on it, but I know they were the ones that discovered it. So,
as you both sit here today, do you have any sense of what the motivation for this murder was?
The easy answer is we're all fallen, and nobody knows for sure what goes on behind closed doors.
Stephen Allwine is charged with second-degree murder and is still free on bail. There is a massive amount of evidence in this case, and much of it the FBI has yet to turn over to prosecutors or the defense.
His church put out a statement of shock and sadness. Someone they'd held up so high had done something unthinkable to someone they loved. At first, he was charged with second-degree murder. Then, that February, he was back in court for trying to contact his son after being told plainly not to. And the month after that, a grand jury upgraded the charge to first-degree premeditated murder. And the case was massive. It leaned almost entirely on electronic and scientific evidence rather than eyewitnesses, which made it one of the most complicated anyone had ever handled. Fred Fink, who ran the criminal division for the county attorney's office, put it simply, most of the time, you're working with human witnesses. This one came down to science and machines. Stephen's lawyers argued there was little physical evidence tying him to the crime, that the scene had been contaminated, that having an affair doesn't make a man a killer. But the crime scene didn't lie, the computers didn't lie, and the blockchain didn't lie either.
And this evening, a jury has found a Cottage Grove man guilty of killing his wife after trying several times to pay someone to kill her. It took investigators several months to find evidence linking Stephen Allwine to Amy Allwine's death. After searching his many computers and phones, investigators say Allwine tried for months to hire a hitman on the dark web. That hidden network of websites requires special access. Tonight, a jury found Stephen Allwine guilty of first-degree premeditated murder.
In January of 2018, Stephen Allwine was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge called him cold, a hypocrite. "You are an incredible actor," he told him. "You can turn your tears on and off." For years, Stephen said nothing publicly. Then, 5 years after Amy's death, from the chapel of the prison where he's serving his life sentence, he finally sat down for an interview, and he still denied everything.
Murdered 5 years ago this month in a bizarre case that made international headlines. Her husband, Stephen Allwine, was convicted of first-degree murder after he tried to hire a hitman on the dark net. He never took the witness stand and has never talked publicly about the case until now.
Well, tonight, in his first interview, he talks about his wife's murder, the hitman, and the overwhelming evidence against him.
5 years later, in the chapel of Stillwater Prison, Stephen Allwine is sitting down for his first interview.
And when I walked in that night and I looked at her eyes, there was nothing there. When I called 911, I said she was dead because I knew there was nothing there anymore. And she didn't deserve this to happen to her.
Did you kill Amy?
No.
Who did?
I believe, based on the evidence that I've seen now, I believe I know who did. And I trace it back to somebody that she was working with.
How did that very specific Bitcoin wallet end up on your Apple products?
Right. So again, it never showed up on my phone. So just to clarify that, but my supposition, and again, I don't have evidence to back this up, is that somebody else got it posted to the cloud, and then the cloud synced with my MacBook and brought it there.
What you seem to be saying is that there was an elaborate hack involved of your systems to make you look guilty.
Yes.
And yet there's never been any evidence of that, correct?
Well, yes and no. I mean, one of the things I always tell people is, change your passwords, update your passwords, have different passwords, and unfortunately, I didn't follow my own advice. I couldn't have done it. If you know me as an individual, I couldn't have done it.
He said that when he found Amy that night, he knew right away she was already gone. He said he could never have done this. When they asked him how his own Bitcoin wallet address ended up on his devices, he suggested it must have been some kind of hack, that someone framed him, synced it onto his computer somehow. He admitted he had no evidence for any of it. He just asked people to believe him. He appealed. In 2021, the courts turned him down. They looked at all of it, the gunshot residue on his hand, the scopolamine he'd searched for, the drug in Amy's blood she was never prescribed, and found there was no reasonable explanation other than his guilt. He appealed again, and every time he lost. Then, in 2025, something unexpected came to light.
Convicted murderers are trying to get a new trial because the credibility of one of the state's go-to experts just took a huge hit.
The digital forensics expert on the case, a man named Mark Lanterman, who'd examined more than 60 devices tied to Amy's murder, came under an FBI investigation, not over the facts of the case, but over his own background. Questions came up about whether he'd really earned the college degrees he'd long claimed. A degree from a school that had closed decades earlier, with no records anyone could track down, and postgraduate work at Harvard that turned out to be a short online course. Stephen jumped on it, as you'd expect. But it's worth being clear about what it does and doesn't mean.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
Mark Lanterman. In this video deposition obtained by 5 Investigates, well-known tech whiz Mark Lanterman is challenged about his past that may have blown up his future.
Do you have copies of diplomas that you earned from Uppsala College?
No. I attempted to get the transcript and I was unable to.
So you know where you went to college, right?
Yes.
And how are we supposed to know?
Well, because I told you.
And that's everything?
That's everything.
Due to the FBI investigation, the county did not sit down for an interview and refused to answer my key questions about Lanterman, including, was he vetted? And have any procedures changed in light of this? Here's what a spokesperson told me. The review and vetting of vendor work and education experience happens during the department review of proposals, adding that a panel reviews their background, including education, professional experience, and credentials.
Nobody has said the expert lied about the evidence itself, and that evidence never rested on one man to begin with. A whole chain of investigators and agencies had reached the very same conclusions long before he ever touched a hard drive. The angle of the wound, the drug, the staged scene, the wallet address written into a ledger that couldn't be erased. It might earn Stephen a hearing someday, but it doesn't undo any of that.
Stephen Allwine in Washington County. He's on year 7 of his life sentence for killing his wife Amy and making it look like a suicide. Records show Lanterman analyzed more than 60 computer devices tied to the case.
How many times has Lanterman lied under oath, whether at trial, in a deposition, in an affidavit, that are all sworn under penalty of perjury?
At this point, we don't know of any specific allegations that Lanterman ever lied about the facts of a case. But depending on how critical of a role he played, legal experts say it could still open the door for a new trial.
What do you say to folks who may be watching this and think you're using Lanterman as a get-out-of-jail-free card?
Unfortunately, I can't change what they believe. You know, don't believe me. Don't believe Lanterman. Go out, look at the evidence yourself, and make your own.
We'll never really know what Amy's final moments were like, whether she was awake or already lost to the drug, whether at the very end she understood what was happening, that the man she'd trusted for 20 years, the man who'd bought her a gun to keep her safe, was the one she'd needed protection from all along. Amy's sister, Julie, said those last months were a living hell, too scared to go outside, sick with worry, certain that some stranger out there wanted her dead, and never once imagining that stranger was sleeping right beside her. She woke up that November morning trying to move forward anyway, roasting pumpkins, planning pies for a holiday she'd never get to see, getting ready to spend the day with her son. She had a simple life, and she wanted for nothing in it. Her boy, her faith, her work, her marriage. She believed she had everything she needed right there at home, and that's what makes this one so hard to sit with. It's not just that she was killed. It's that the thing she trusted most in the world was the very thing that took her. So what do you take away from something like this? The first thing is that knowing about danger isn't the same as being safe from it. Even with the FBI standing at her door, everyone was looking outward. For a stranger, for a hitman. And the whole time, the threat was already inside the house. The second is that the trail we leave behind us is far longer than we think it is. Deleted notes, hidden software, untraceable money. None of it was anywhere near as invisible as Stephen believed. The blockchain remembered exactly what he tried to erase. And the last one is the hardest. That a person can stand up in front of a whole community for years, respected, admired, counseling other people on love and marriage, while living a completely separate life in the dark. It's not a reason to trust no one. Most people really are exactly who they seem to be. But it's a reminder that the people closest to us are the ones we can least afford to stop truly seeing. Thank you for staying with me right to the end of this story. If you'd like to support the channel and help me keep bringing you true crime documentaries that are carefully researched and told with respect, go ahead and leave a like, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Every bit of support means more than you know.